The ultimatum. The first sign that something was amiss came at 2:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. In New York City, the massive billboards in Times Square flickered and went dark. Seconds later, smartphones across the city emitted a cacophony of emergency alerts, their screens flashing to life with an ominous message. Stand by for emergency BROETCAST. Similar scenes unfolded across the globe. In Tokyo, holographic advertisements winked out of existence. London's iconic BT Tower, usually scrolling with news and weather updates, fell silent. From bustling metropolises to remote villages, every screen, every device capable of receiving a signal, suddenly came under the control of an unknown force. In the White House Situation Room, President Elena Reyes stared at the array of monitors lining the wall, each showing the same blank screen. The room buzzed with tense activity as officials and military personnel scrambled to make sense of the global communications takeover. Madam President, General Harrison, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, addressed her with barely concealed panic in his voice. We've lost control of our entire communications infrastructure. Nuclear launch systems are offline. We're blind and deaf. Before Reyes could respond, every screen in the room blazed to life. The image that appeared sent a collective gasp through the assembled leaders. A gathering of alien beings, each wildly different in appearance, seated in a semicircle. Their features ranged from the vaguely humanoid to the utterly incomprehensible. A figure in the center, tall and slender with iridescent skin that seemed to ripple like water, leaned forward. When it spoke, its words were somehow perfectly understandable, resonating not just through the speakers, but seemingly directly in the minds of all who listened. People of Earth, the alien's voice was simultaneously melodious and terrifying. We are the Galactic Council, the governing body of civilized species in this sector of the universe. Your rapid expansion and technological development have not gone unnoticed. It is time for humanity to face the trial of ascension. President Reyes found her voice. What is this trial? Who are you to judge us? The alien's eyes, if they could be called eyes, focused on her. We are the arbiters of galactic peace and progress. For millennia, we have guided the evolution of species, ensuring only the worthy take their place among the stars. Humanity stands at a crossroads. You have achieved much, but your potential for destruction threatens the delicate balance we maintain. Images began to flash across the screens. Wars, environmental disasters, acts of cruelty and violence from throughout human history. But interspersed were also scenes of great beauty, scientific achievement, and compassion. Your species is capable of both great harm and tremendous good, the alien continued. The trial of ascension will determine which path you truly embody. You have 24 of your Earth hours to prove your worth or face extinction. The word extinction hung in the air like a physical presence. In living rooms, offices, and public spaces around the world, people watched in stunned silence or erupted into panic. In New Delhi, Dr. Amrita Patel, a renowned physicist, turned to her colleague with determination in her eyes. We need to contact every scientific institution on the planet. If this is real, we're going to need every brilliant mind working together. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in Buenos Aires, Carlos Mendoza, a university student and amateur astronomer, frantically began correlating his personal observations with the sudden appearance of the alien council. His hand shook as he realized he had captured images of anomalous objects in Earth's orbit just days before. Back in the White House, chaos reigned. Military leaders argued for an immediate show of force, while diplomats pleaded for caution. President Reyes raised her hand, silencing the room. How do we prove our worth? She asked the alien council, her voice steady despite the weight of humanity's fate on her shoulders. The central figure gestured, and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. A planet shrouded in darkness, its surface a maze of twisted landscapes and roiling storms. This is Nexus Prime, a world of our design, the alien explained. It has been the crucible for countless species. Send your champions there. If they survive until the dawn of its 37-hour rotation, humanity will have earned its place among the stars. Fail, and your species will be deemed unworthy of existence. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the Situation Room. General Harrison leaned in close to the president. "It's a trap, Madam President. We can't possibly." But Reyes cut him off with a raised hand. Her mind was racing, weighing impossible options with incalculable consequences. That's when she noticed a figure standing quietly in the corner of the room. Sarah Chen, a mid-level State Department diplomat known for her unorthodox approaches to international crises. "Ms. Chen," Reyes called out, surprising everyone. "You've been silent. What's your take on this?" Sarah stepped forward, her eyes never leaving the alien images. "Madam President, distinguished council members," she addressed both human and alien leaders, "I believe we're approaching this all wrong. This isn't just a test of survival. It's a test of our very nature as a species." The room fell silent as Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. "You've shown us our capacity for destruction, but also our potential for greatness. If this trial is truly about proving our worth, then we need to demonstrate not just our will to survive, but our ability to understand, to grow, to become more than what we are." She turned to face the Alien Council directly. "We accept your challenge, but we propose an addition to your terms. Allow us to send a team, not just warriors or scientists, but a group that represents the diversity of our species. Let them face your trial, and in doing so, show you who we truly are." The aliens conferred among themselves, their expressions unreadable. Finally, the central figure spoke again. "Your proposal is unexpected. We will allow this. Choose your champions wisely, for they will carry the fate of your entire species." As the transmission ended and screens around the world returned to normal, the true weight of the situation began to settle on humanity. In homes and halls of power alike, the same questions echoed. Who would go? How could they prepare? And what horrors awaited them on this alien world? President Reyes turned to Sarah, a mix of hope and trepidation in her eyes. "Ms. Chen, I hope you're ready to back up those pretty words. You've bought us some time, but now we need a plan." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing. "We need to assemble a team that represents the best of humanity, not just in skills, but in spirit. We have 24 hours to find people willing to risk everything for a chance to save our species." As word of the challenge spread, reactions around the globe ranged from abject terror to steely resolve. In labs and universities, scientists began poring over every scrap of data they could find about alien life and hostile environments. Military strategists debated tactics for surviving in unknown terrain against unimaginable threats. But in a small diner in Midwest America, a grizzled ex-Special Forces operator named Jack sat at the counter, watching the news with a grim expression. As the broadcaster repeated the alien ultimatum, Jack drained his coffee and stood up. "Guess retirement's over," he muttered, leaving a generous tip as he headed for the door. He had a feeling his particular set of skills was about to be in high demand. Halfway across the world, in a cluttered Tokyo apartment, Dr. Yuki Tanaka's phone wouldn't stop ringing. The xenobiologist had been considered a crackpot by many of her peers for her theories on potential alien life. Now, every research institution on the planet wanted her insights. And in the depths of a secure government facility, a teenage girl named Zara sat surrounded by banks of computers, her fingers flying over keyboards. She had been recruited for her unparalleled hacking skills, and now she was doing the impossible, deciphering fragments of the alien transmission, searching for any edge humanity could gain. As the clock ticked down toward humanity's greatest trial, the world held its breath. In 24 hours, a handful of individuals would carry the hopes and dreams of an entire species to a distant, deadly world. The ultimate test of humanity's worth had begun. Desperate measures. The next 18 hours passed in a blur of frantic activity across the globe. World leaders convened in an emergency virtual summit, their faces grim as they grappled with the enormity of the alien ultimatum. Military commanders drew up desperate plans for global defense, while religious leaders called for prayer and unity in the face of cosmic judgment. In Washington, D.C., the White House had become the epicenter of humanity's response. President Elena Reyes stood at the head of a long table in the Situation Room, surrounded by advisors, military brass, and scientific experts. The atmosphere was thick with tension and the acrid smell of too much coffee. "What are our options?" Reyes demanded, her voice steady despite the dark circles under her eyes. General Harrison stepped forward, his uniform crisp despite the long hours. "Madam President, I still advocate for a show of force. We can't just roll over for these aliens. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats beforehand. And how do you propose we fight an enemy that can shut down our entire global communications network with a thought?" Interrupted Dr. Ileana Cortez, the President's chief scientific advisor. "Any military action would be suicide." As the argument heated up, Sarah Chen watched from the corner, her mind racing. The diplomat knew they were running out of time, and these circular debates were getting them nowhere. She cleared her throat, drawing the room's attention. "With all due respect," Sarah began, her voice cutting through the tension, "we're missing the point. The Galactic Council isn't asking us to fight. They're challenging us to survive and prove our worth. We need to assemble our team, and fast." President Reyes nodded, a glimmer of hope in her tired eyes. "Ms. Chen is right. We have less than 6 hours left. I want candidates for our expedition team, and I want them now." The room erupted into action. Calls were made, databases scoured, and within the hour, holographic profiles of potential team members flickered to life above the Situation Room table. "Jack Morrison," General Harrison said, pointing to the image of a grizzled man with hard eyes. "Ex-Special Forces, top of his class in survival training. If anyone can keep a team alive in hostile territory, it's him." Dr. Cortez stepped forward, gesturing to another profile. "Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the world's leading xenobiologist. Her theories on alien life forms have been controversial, but given our current situation, I'd say she's been vindicated." "And what about our tech expert?" Reyes asked, scanning the profiles. A junior analyst cleared his throat nervously. About that. Our best option might be unconventional." He tapped a command, and a new profile appeared. A teenage girl with bright blue hair and a mischievous smirk. "This is Zara Novak," the analyst explained. 17 years old, and quite possibly the best hacker on the planet. She's been on our watch list for years, but now, well, her skills might be exactly what we need. Reyes raised an eyebrow. "A teenager? Are we that desperate?" Sarah stepped forward, her eyes locked on Zora's profile. "Yes, Madam President, we are." As the final selections were made, the chosen individuals were rushed to Washington from all corners of the globe. Time was running out. Jack Morrison was extracted from a remote cabin in the Alaskan wilderness, his go-bag already packed as if he'd been expecting the call. Dr. Yuki Tanaka was pulled from a Tokyo research lab, her arms full of hastily grabbed equipment and scribbled notes, and Zara Novak was escorted from her parents' modest home in Prague, her expression a mix of excitement and terror. They converged on the White House just as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the perfectly manicured lawn. As they were ushered into a secure briefing room, the weight of their task began to settle on their shoulders. Jack's eyes darted around the room, assessing exits and potential threats out of habit. Yuki clutched her tablet to her chest, mind racing with possible alien physiologies they might encounter. Zara's fingers twitched, already missing her customized rig, wondering what alien tech might be like. Sarah Chen entered the room, her posture straight despite the exhaustion evident on her face. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice solemn. "I know you've been briefed on the situation, but let me be clear. The fate of our entire species rests on your shoulders." She tapped a control, and a holographic image of the alien planet, Nexus Prime, flickered to life in the center of the room. This is your battlefield, though we hope it won't come to actual combat. Your mission is to survive until dawn, approximately 37 Earth hours, while demonstrating the best qualities of humanity. Jack snorted. And how exactly do we do that while trying not to get killed on an alien death world? Sarah met his gaze steadily. By working together, by showing innovation, compassion, and the will to survive without losing our humanity. This isn't just a test of strength or intelligence, it's a test of who we are as a species. Dr. Tanaka raised her hand tentatively. What kind of equipment will we have? My research indicates that. I'm afraid there's no time for extensive preparation. Sarah cut in gently. You'll each be allowed one small pack of personal items. Anything else, you'll have to find or make do without on Nexus Prime. Zara, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke up. So we're supposed to survive on a killer alien planet with just a backpack each. Wow, no pressure or anything. Despite the gravity of the situation, a small smile tugged at Sarah's lips. I know it seems impossible, but you were each chosen because you represent the best of what humanity has to offer. Jack, your survival skills and leadership. Dr. Tanaka, your brilliant mind and scientific insight. And Zara, your technological intuition and ability to think outside the box. She looked at each of them in turn. Together, you have a chance. Apart, she left the sentence unfinished, the implication clear. As the team began to prepare, gathering what meager supplies they were allowed, a commotion outside the room caught their attention. The door burst open, and a maintenance worker stumbled in, security personnel close on his heels. Wait, the man gasped, his eyes wild. He thrust a crumpled piece of paper toward the team. You need to know, it's a trap. You have to. Before he could finish, he was tackled by security and dragged from the room. The paper fluttered to the floor at Jack's feet. He snatched it up, unfolding it with steady hands. Written in hasty scrawl were 3 words. Run. Jack looked up, meeting the eyes of his teammates. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Whatever they were walking into, it was even more dangerous than they had been told. Sarah, who had watched the scene unfold with a mixture of shock and resignation, took a deep breath. I don't know what that was about, but your departure time is in 30 minutes. Whatever happens on Nexus Prime, remember, you're not just fighting for your own survival, but for the survival of our entire species. As the team made their final preparations, the weight of their mission pressed down on them like a physical force. They were strangers, thrust together by cosmic circumstance, carrying the hopes and fears of billions. In Washington and around the world, humans gathered around screens and holographic projectors, waiting to witness the departure of their champions. Parents held their children close, lovers clasped hands, and even bitter enemies found themselves united in their hope for humanity's survival. As the alien ship descended to collect Earth's chosen representatives, a hush fell over the globe. In living rooms and public squares, in the halls of government, and the sanctuaries of churches, a single thought echoed. Good luck. Come back to us. The team of 4 stood on the White House lawn, their faces set with determination as the ship's light engulfed them. In a flash, they were gone, leaving behind a world holding its breath, waiting to learn its fate. On Nexus Prime, a dark and twisted landscape awaited, its secrets and dangers yet to be revealed. Humanity's trial had begun. Welcome to hell. The world dissolved in a flash of blinding light, molecules scattered across vast distances only to reassemble in an instant. As the glow faded, the team from Earth found themselves standing on alien soil, the transition so smooth they might have missed it, if not for the sudden, oppressive darkness that engulfed them. Jack was the first to react, his special forces training kicking in. Sound off, he barked, his eyes straining to adjust to the gloom. Everyone okay? I'm here. Dr. Tanaka's voice came from his left. a slight tremor betraying her nerves. Fascinating. The air composition seems. Save the science lesson, Doc. Jack cut her off. Zara, you with us? A moment of silence stretched too long before the teenager's voice piped up, uncharacteristically small. Yeah. I'm okay. Just give me a sec. As their eyes adjusted, the alien landscape began to take shape around them. They stood on a rocky outcropping. The ground beneath their feet, a strange, almost metallic substance that seemed to pulse with a faint, sickly light. In every direction, as far as they could see, jagged spires of crystalline structures jutted into a sky devoid of stars, occluded by roiling, oily clouds that flickered with bursts of otherworldly energy. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," Jack muttered, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "Looks like hell threw up and called it a planet." Dr. Tanaka was already fumbling with her pack, pulling out a compact device. "The atmospheric readings are off the charts," she reported, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. "The composition is. I've never seen anything like it. By all rights, we shouldn't be able to breathe." Zara, having regained some of her composure, snorted. "Great, so we're breathing alien air that might kill us. Any other good news, Doc?" Before Tanaka could respond, a low, rumbling growl echoed from somewhere in the darkness below their position. The sound was followed by a series of rapid clicks and a high-pitched keening that set their teeth on edge. "Move," Jack ordered, his voice low and urgent. "Now. Up the ridge. Go." They scrambled up the rocky incline, the strange, bioluminescent ground providing just enough light to avoid the worst obstacles. As they climbed, the sounds from below grew louder, more numerous. Something was coming. Reaching a plateau, the team paused to catch their breath. Zara, her face pale in the eerie glow, turned to Jack. "So, Mr. Survival Expert, what's the plan? Because I'm pretty sure runaway isn't going to cut it for 37 hours. Jack's eyes never stopped scanning their surroundings as he replied. "First, we find defensible shelter. Then we take stock of our supplies and gather whatever intel we can about this place. After that," he trailed off, the unspoken "we pray" hanging in the air. Dr. Tanaka, who had been fiddling with her device, suddenly gasped. "Everyone, look at this." She held out the screen, which displayed a rapidly fluctuating graph. "The energy readings, they're not random. There's a pattern, almost like." Her words were cut off as the ground beneath them shuddered violently. Cracks appeared in the metallic surface, oozing a phosphorescent liquid that hissed and bubbled. The team stumbled, fighting to keep their footing. "Move," Jack yelled again, grabbing Zora's arm and pushing her ahead of him. "Head for that outcropping." They ran, leaping over widening fissures and dodging gouts of steaming liquid that shot up from the fractured ground. Behind them, the plateau they had just vacated collapsed with a thunderous roar, swallowed by the planet itself. Reaching the relative safety of a large crystalline formation, they pressed their backs against its cool surface, chests heaving. For a moment, the only sound was their ragged breathing and the distant rumble of settling rock. "Okay," Zora panted, "I officially hate this planet. Can we go home now?" Jack ignored her, his mind racing through survival scenarios, none of which seemed adequate for their current situation. "Doc," he said, turning to Tanaka, "what were you saying about those energy readings?" Tanaka, still clutching her device, shook her head in wonder. "It's incredible. The entire planet seems to be emitting a coherent energy pattern. It's almost like..." "Like what?" Jack pressed. "Like a broadcast," Zora finished, her eyes widening with realization. "The planet is transmitting a signal." Before they could discuss the implications of this discovery, a piercing shriek split the air. From the shadows emerged a creature that defied description. A writhing mass of tentacles and barbed appendages, its body pulsing with the same sickly light as the ground. Multiple eyes, glowing with malevolent intelligence, fixed on the team. "Don't move," Jack whispered, his body tensing for action. Maybe it can't see us if we... The creature let out another shriek and lunged forward with terrifying speed. Never mind. Run, Jack shouted, shoving his teammates ahead of him. They sprinted along a narrow ridge, the alien monstrosity in hot pursuit. Its tentacles lashed out, narrowly missing Zora's legs as she vaulted over a fallen crystal spire. This way, Dr. Tanaka called out, pointing to a dark crevice in the rock face ahead. It was their only chance, a space too narrow for their pursuer to follow. They dove into the opening one by one, Jack bringing up the rear. He turned just in time to see a barbed tentacle whipping toward his face. With lightning reflexes, he caught the appendage, crying out as its barbs dug into his palm. With a savage yank, he tore it free and tumbled backward into the crevice. The creature thrashed and screeched outside their hiding place, its bulk preventing it from reaching them. After what seemed like an eternity, it retreated, its frustrated howls fading into the distance. In the tight confines of their shelter, the team caught their breath, the reality of their situation sinking in. They had been on this alien world for less than an hour, and they had nearly died twice. "Let me see your hand," Dr. Tanaka said, reaching for Jack's injured palm. As she examined the wounds, her scientific mind kicked into overdrive. Fascinating. The barbs seemed to be some kind of organic metallic hybrid. I've never seen anything like it. Jack winced as she probed the injury. Great. I'll be sure to appreciate how fascinating it is when it kills me. Zara, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, spoke up. Guys, I hate to be the bearer of more bad news, but has anyone else noticed we're glowing? Sure enough, a faint luminescence had begun to spread across their skin, pulsing in time with the strange rhythm of the planet. It must be a reaction to the atmosphere, Tanaka mused, her own scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her fear. Our bodies are adapting to the alien environment, but I can't say what the long-term effects might be. Jack flexed his injured hand, noting with surprise that the pain was already subsiding. Well, if it's helping us heal faster, I'm not complaining. But we need to figure out our next move. We can't stay in this crack forever. Zara nodded, some of her usual spark returning to her eyes. Yeah, and we still need to solve the mystery of why this entire planet is broadcasting a signal. I bet that's the key to this whole trial thing. As if in response to her words, a distant rumble shook their shelter, sending a shower of crystalline dust raining down on them. The planet itself seemed to be reacting to their presence, growing more hostile by the minute. All right, team, Jack said, his voice steady despite the dire circumstances. We've survived the first hour. Only 36 more to go. Here's what we're going to do. As Jack laid out their strategy for survival, none of them could shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of Nexus Prime's horrors. The true test was yet to come, and with each passing moment, the line between survival and humanity's extinction grew thinner. Outside their temporary haven, the alien world pulsed and writhed, its secrets waiting to be uncovered. The trial had only just begun, and already it was living up to its ominous introduction. Welcome to hell, indeed. Turning point. Hours had passed since their narrow escape, each moment a struggle for survival on the hostile surface of Nexus Prime. The team had cautiously emerged from their rocky shelter, moving through the alien landscape with a mixture of awe and terror. Every step brought new dangers. Crystalline structures that shattered into razor-sharp shards, pools of bubbling liquid that emitted noxious fumes, and the ever-present threat of more creatures lurking in the shadows. Jack led the way, his military training proving invaluable as he guided them through the treacherous terrain. Dr. Tanaka followed, her scientific mind working overtime to catalog and analyze every new phenomenon they encountered. Zara brought up the rear, her young eyes sharp for any signs of technology amidst the organic chaos. As they crested a ridge, a vast plain stretched out before them, dotted with strange, pulsating structures that looked like a cross between giant fungi and circuit boards. In the distance, a massive tower loomed, its surface crawling with lines of energy that matched the rhythm of the planet's mysterious signal. "That's it," Zara breathed, her eyes wide. "That has to be the source of the broadcast." Dr. Tanaka nodded, adjusting her makeshift scanning device. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever that tower is, it's the heart of this world's technology." Jack's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the plain between them and the tower. "It's also probably the most heavily guarded place on this rock. Getting there won't be easy." As if to emphasize his point, a flock of bat-like creatures suddenly burst from one of the fungal structures, their leathery wings glinting with metallic edges. The team ducked behind an outcropping as the creatures screeched overhead, their cries resonating with the planet's pulse in a discordant harmony. "We need a plan," Jack said once the immediate danger had passed. "We can't just wander around hoping to survive. We need to understand this place, find its weaknesses." Zara, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly perked up. "Wait a second. Doc, you said this planet is like one big broadcast system, right? What if we could hack it?" Dr. Tanaka blinked, considering the idea. "In theory, if we could interface with the planet's systems, we might be able to understand its purpose, maybe even control some of its functions. But how would we even begin to?" "There," Zara interrupted, pointing to a cluster of crystalline formations near the base of the ridge. "Those structures, they're not random. Look at the patterns, the way they're connected. It's a node, like a local server in a bigger network." Jack looked skeptical. "Even if you're right, how do you plan to hack an alien planet? It's not like you can just plug in your laptop." Zara grinned, some of her old confidence returning. "Watch me." With cautious steps, they approached the crystal cluster. Up close, they could see faint pulses of light traveling through the structures, following complex patterns that seemed just on the edge of comprehensibility. Zara knelt beside one of the crystals, her fingers hovering over its surface. "Okay, let's see if I can speak your language," she murmured. As her hand made contact, a jolt of energy surged through her body. Zara gasped, her eyes rolling back as streams of data flooded her consciousness. Jack moved to pull her away, but Dr. Tanaka held him back. "Wait," the scientist said, her voice tense. "Look!" The crystals around them had begun to glow brighter, their pulses synchronizing with Zora's rapid heartbeat. Lines of light spread out from the cluster, forming a holographic display that hovered in the air before them. It's a map," Dr. Tanaka breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "A blueprint of the entire planet's systems." Jack leaned in, his tactical mind quickly assessing the display. "There," he pointed to a pulsing node near the center. "That must be the tower we saw. And these lines, they're like defense grids, layers of security protecting it." As they studied the map, Zora's eyes snapped open, glowing with the same inner light as the crystals. "I can see it," she said, her voice overlaid with a strange harmonic resonance. "The planet, its purpose, it's all here." "What is it?" Jack asked, his voice urgent. "What's this place for?" Zara's face contorted with effort as she sifted through the flood of alien data. It's a test, but not just for us. For every species that reaches a certain level of development. The Galactic Council, they didn't create this place. They found it, just like we did." Dr. Tanaka's scientific curiosity overrode her caution. "Found it? You mean this planet is some kind of ancient alien construct?" Zara nodded, sweat beading on her brow as she maintained the connection. "Older than we can imagine. It's designed to filter species, to ensure only those worthy of joining the galactic community survive. But there's more." Her words were cut off as a piercing alarm shattered the air. The holographic display flickered and vanished as Zara was violently thrown back from the crystal cluster. The ground beneath them began to tremble, and in the distance, they could see the tower's energy patterns shifting, becoming more aggressive. "We've triggered some kind of security system," Jack shouted over the growing cacophony. "We need to move now." As they scrambled away from the node, the very landscape began to shift around them. Crystal spires erupted from the ground, forming a labyrinth of razor-sharp walls. The fungal structures in the plain burst open, releasing swarms of mechanical insects that filled the air with a metallic buzz. "Head for that ravine," Jack ordered, pointing to a narrow fissure in the changing terrain. "We can use it for cover." They ran, dodging crystal shards and swarms of alien defenders. Dr. Tanaka stumbled, nearly falling into a suddenly appeared pit of swirling energy, but Jack's strong arm yanked her back at the last second. As they reached the relative safety of the ravine, Zara collapsed against the rock wall, her body shaking from the neural overload. "I saw it," she gasped. "The way to beat this place. But it's not about survival. Not really. It's about understanding." "Understanding what?" Dr. Tanaka asked, her scientific mind racing with possibilities. "The bigger picture," Zara replied, her eyes focusing on something beyond their immediate surroundings. "This planet, this trial, it's not just a test of our strength or intelligence. It's a test of our values, our ability to see beyond ourselves." Jack, ever the pragmatist, interjected. "That's great, kid, but right now we need to focus on staying alive long enough to put that understanding to use. What's our next move?" Zara's expression hardened with determination. "We need to get to that tower. The security systems I triggered. They're not just trying to kill us. They're reconfiguring the planet, changing the parameters of the test. If we don't reach the central control node soon, we might lose our chance to prove ourselves worthy." As if to emphasize her point, a massive tremor shook the ravine. In the distance, they could see the tower's energy patterns intensifying, sending out pulses that reshaped the landscape with each beat. "All right," Jack said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. "We've got a destination and a purpose. That's more than we had an hour ago. Now we just need to figure out how to cross a planet that's actively trying to kill us." Dr. Tanaka, who had been studying the changed terrain with a scientist's eye, suddenly perked up. "Wait a moment. The way the crystals are growing, the patterns in the energy fields. I think I see a path. It's like the planet is creating a maze, but every maze has a solution." "Great," Jack nodded. "You navigate. I'll take point. Zara, you focus on deciphering any more of that alien data rattling around in your head. We're going to need every advantage we can get." As they prepared to leave their temporary shelter, each member of the team felt a shift in their dynamics. They were no longer just survivors struggling against an alien world. They were humanity's champions, armed with new knowledge and a growing understanding of their true test. The tower loomed in the distance, both a promise and a threat. Whatever secrets it held, whatever final challenge awaited them, they would face it together. The turning point had come. Now, it was time to prove humanity's worth, not just to the Galactic Council, but to the ancient intelligence that had set this trial in motion eons ago. With a shared nod of determination, they stepped out of the ravine and into the next phase of their journey. The fate of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. Humanity's gambit. The journey to the central tower was a gauntlet of ever-increasing dangers. The team fought their way through swarms of mechanical insects, navigated fields of crystals that shifted like quicksand, and outsmarted defense systems that seemed to anticipate their every move. With each obstacle, they grew stronger, more cohesive, their individual skills melding into a formidable whole. Jack's tactical genius guided them through the most treacherous terrains. Dr. Tanaka's scientific insights helped them understand and counter the planet's defenses, and Zara, still reeling from the alien data coursing through her mind, provided crucial information about Nexus Prime's systems. As they neared the tower, the very air seemed to crackle with energy. The pulsing rhythm that had been their constant companion since arrival grew louder, more insistent. "We're close," Zara said, her voice tight with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "The central node. It's calling to us." Dr. Tanaka nodded, her eyes fixed on the looming structure. "The energy readings are off the charts. Whatever's in there, It's the key to this whole trial. Jack, ever vigilant, scanned their surroundings. And you can bet it'll be the most heavily defended part of this entire planet. We need a plan. They huddled in the shadow of a massive crystal formation, the tower tantalizingly close yet separated from them by a field of swirling energy that crackled and sparked ominously. Zara closed her eyes, focusing on the alien data in her mind. The tower's defenses. They're adaptive. They learn from every species that attempts the trial. But that means they can be outsmarted. Jack finished, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Dr. Tanaka's brow furrowed in concentration. If we could create a diversion, something unexpected that the system hasn't encountered before. I have an idea, Zura said, her eyes snapping open with newfound determination. But it's risky, and we'll only get one shot. As Zara outlined her plan, a mix of emotions played across her teammates' faces: skepticism, fear, and finally, resolute acceptance. It was audacious, borderline insane, but it was their best chance. "All right, kid," Jack said, clapping Zara on the shoulder. "Let's show this ancient alien supercomputer what humanity's made of." They split up, each moving to a different point around the energy field. Jack began assembling a makeshift device from parts they'd scavenged along their journey. Dr. Tanaka calibrated her instruments, preparing to gather crucial data. And Zara, taking a deep breath, approached the edge of the energy field. "Now," Jack's voice crackled over their cobbled-together communicators. In perfect synchronization, they acted. Jack activated his device, sending a pulse of electromagnetic energy into the field. Dr. Tanaka launched a barrage of crystalline shards, each precisely aimed to disrupt key points in the defense grid. And Zara, summoning every ounce of her courage, stepped into the energy field itself. The effect was instantaneous and spectacular. The field erupted in a dazzling display of light and sound, its patterns thrown into chaos. And at the center of it all stood Zara, her body glowing with the same energy that powered Nexus Prime, her mind interfacing directly with the planet's systems. "It's working," Dr. Tanaka shouted over the din. "The defenses are destabilizing." Jack was already moving, carving a path through the weakened field. "Let's go. We won't get another chance." They rushed toward the tower, Zara suspended in a trance-like state between them. As they reached the base of the structure, a massive door materialized, its surface covered in intricate, shifting patterns. "Some kind of lock," Jack muttered, his hand searching for any kind of mechanism. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward, her eyes widening in realization. "It's not a lock. It's a puzzle. A final test." The patterns on the door shifted faster, forming complex equations, philosophical quandaries, and moral dilemmas. It was a test not just of intelligence, but of ethics, empathy, and understanding. "We need Zara," Dr. Tanaka said urgently, her connection to the planet's systems. But Zara remained unresponsive, her mind lost in the vast network of Nexus Prime. The door's patterns began to spin faster, a countdown to their failure. In that moment of crisis, something remarkable happened. Instead of panicking or giving up, the team drew together. Jack, the hardened soldier, found himself solving ethical dilemmas with unexpected insight. Dr. Tanaka, the rational scientist, navigated complex emotional scenarios with deep empathy. And through it all, they could feel Zura's presence, her consciousness spread through the planet's systems, guiding and supporting them. As the final puzzle piece fell into place, the door dissolved, revealing a vast chamber within the tower. At its center stood a pillar of pure energy, the heart of Nexus Prime. They stepped inside, and the world around them seemed to fall away. They stood not in a physical space, but in a representation of the planet's consciousness, and they were not alone. Ethereal forms shimmered into existence around them, representations of countless species that had faced this trial before. Some had failed, others had passed, but all had left their mark on Nexus Prime. A voice, not heard but felt, resonated through their beings. You have reached the final stage. Prove your worth. In that moment, Zara's eyes cleared, her consciousness fully returning to her body. She looked at her teammates, then at the swirling vortex of energy before them. I understand now, she said softly. This isn't about proving we're better than other species. It's about proving we're ready to be part of something greater. With newfound clarity, they approached the central pillar. But instead of trying to control or dominate it, they opened themselves to it. They shared their journey, their struggles, their moments of doubt and triumph. They showed their flaws and their potential, their capacity for destruction and their drive to create. Through Zara's connection, they broadcast not just their own experiences, but the full tapestry of human history. The wars and the peace, the cruelty and the kindness, the destruction of nature and the efforts to preserve it. They held nothing back, offering a true and honest representation of humanity in all its complex glory. As the last of their memories faded, silence fell over the chamber. The ethereal forms of past species drew closer, their energies mingling with the central pillar. The voice returned, this time with a note of something almost like wonder. You are flawed, imperfect, capable of great wrong, and yet also capable of remarkable growth, compassion, and understanding. You do not seek to conquer the galaxy, but to learn from it, to be part of it. The chamber filled with a warm, welcoming light. Humanity has passed the trial. Welcome to the galactic community. In that moment of triumph, as joy and relief washed over them, the team felt a shift in the energy around them. Nexus Prime was changing, not shutting down, but evolving. Their honesty, their willingness to show both the light and dark aspects of humanity, had altered the very nature of the trial itself. As the chamber began to fade around them, preparing to return them to Earth, Zara smiled at her teammates. We didn't just pass the test, she said. We changed it. For every species that comes after us. Jack nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. Not bad for a day's work. Dr. Tanaka, her eyes shining with the promise of new scientific horizons, added, We've opened the door to the stars. Imagine what we'll learn, what we'll become. As the light engulfed them, preparing to send them home to a Earth forever changed by their success, they shared a final look of understanding. They had come to Nexus Prime as strangers, thrown together by circumstance. They left as a team, as representatives of humanity at its best. In the vast tapestry of the galaxy, a new thread had been woven. Humanity, with all its flaws and all its potential, had taken its first true step into a larger universe. The journey ahead would be challenging, filled with wonders and dangers beyond imagination. But they would face it as they had faced Nexus Prime. Together, with courage, curiosity, and an unwavering belief in the potential for growth and understanding. As they vanished from the chamber, the echoes of their trial rippling out across the cosmos, a new era dawned. Humanity's gambit had paid off, and the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter in welcome.